It's time for the Chips and Salsa Show.
The only show about Latinos for Latinos. And did we mention Latinos?
It's the Latísima.
Latinos come in all flavors, shapes, and sizes. You don't have to be Latino to enjoy chips and salsa.
People love chips and salsa.
Guess what, boys and girls, chipsters, chipsteros. It's time for another edition of the Chips and Salsa Show, New Mexico. I am one of your co-hosts, Alice Lara, here with the other co-host,
Zeke Rodriguez.
Zeke the Zekeinator. We have a great guest we're going to get to in just a few moments, and that is our good friend Michael Cain, who is running here locally in Doña Ana County for the district attorney. And we will get to you because you won't want to miss this, because not only is he going to talk about his campaign, but national issues and all kinds of good stuff you'll want to hear about. Speaking of that, I have to mention that today was primary day here in New Mexico. That's going to be another one of our topics. I voted, as you can see my little sticker, I voted today, so we're very excited about that. And unfortunately, well, you know, there's been early voting going on, so I'm sure a lot of people have voted already. But unfortunately, I was only number 126 at about noontime. So if, you know, this is going to be recorded, then uploaded tomorrow, so it'll be too late. But I hope that you voted if you lived in New Mexico in the primary, because it's very important. And one interesting, so I just want to preview also too, that we are going to talk about, the Hunter Biden gun trial, because we've got such a pro here on the law, that I know you have some maybe thoughts about that. That just kind of started up and they chose a jury. The other thing is we have to talk about the Trump trial, the verdict, and analysis of that. What are we up to? Did you tell me 200 million or something?
He's close to $250 million. Yeah, I think it was 200 plus million last time I checked, but it's probably past $250 million by now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out. If you listen to our Memorial Day show, thank you very much. We get a lot of hits and views on that. And we interviewed some wonderful guys, and they were from the Organ Mountain Veterans Coffee Group, which is just a little community right here close to the Organ Mountains. Those guys are awesome. I went out. They do a lot of community goodwill service, and we're going to have them back. Yeah. They are wonderful.
Some of the most solid dudes I've ever met, seriously. I mean, those guys are just like freaking, you know, they're angelic in their male energy.
I love that.
Seriously, though, they're very altruistic dudes. They're very humble, very smart, well-spoken veterans. I mean, you can't say any more good things about those guys, so I'm glad to have them back, and I'm glad to be supporting them in the future.
They are, and if you go up to that area, in case you're watching and you're from around the Doña Ana County, or even, you know, El Paso, close enough, they have a cool cemetery they were telling us about that has a lot of historic graves in there. I mean, you know, the Confederacy, Civil War was fought down here. So anyway, just I want to put a plug for them. And then before we get started on our official show, I also want to thank our wonderful studio people here, Haley and Joey Garza, who do a great job. Thank you very much for helping us out. And in case you missed any of the show, this will be uploaded, of course, to our YouTube channel, Chips and Salsa Show New Mexico, and then also on Rumble.
Yeah, we'll start bumping the Rumble real hard here too, guys, because it's going to be election season. They're already starting to censor like crazy. I see the bots are out like crazy, although the bots still won't defend Biden. They'll say other stuff, but they won't defend Biden. Yeah, they can't. Even the bots can't do it. But we're going to go into Rumble because I know we're going to be censoring. We've already caught them censoring our views. I'm censored like crazy on Facebook. So Rumble is the best alternative for, you know, getting the message out.
You know, and you are so right, because there was one recent show. And so, you know, when you start out, you just have a few views because you just uploaded it. So I kind of watch it by the hour, and Haley will even back me up on this. So by the end of the day, it had increased like 2 views. Now, my family's big enough to increase it by like 20 more views at least.
Yeah,
you know,
the Lottos are
good
big time.
Mexican Catholic family too. So what's going on with that? So I am sure that you are absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's like Big Brother too, because if you start talking about the censorship, they punish you even more. So it's probably not good that we're talking about it right now.
Yeah.
But it's all right. You know, it's like super sadist, kind of like that. You know what I mean? You can't even mention that you're being watched. So they're like, oh, we're going to really watch you now. But anyway.
That's cool, and we're unafraid of that. So what I'm first going to do
no, we're not.
Is we'll say just about anything here. I'm going to toss it to Mr. Zeke, who's going to introduce Michael Cain, and then we'll get into our topics and all that good stuff.
Yeah. No, thank you, Alice, for that wonderful introduction. We're going to have a good show today. We have Michael Cain. He's already back. He's still the most viewed episode that we've had on YouTube. You know, that's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
And keep watching it.
And, you know, he's a captivating guy. I'm working closely with him in his campaign. I've gotten to know him really well over the past few weeks. And he's a real dude. He's a real down-to-earth guy. he just is very authentic in his demeanor and his lifestyle, and just very humble. And I don't think you're going to get that from many other candidates. I've been involved in politics for a long time. It's just really hard to find. He's always surprised when we're out in public and people take a liking to him because he's like, man, everybody's so awesome. I'm like, yeah, bro, because you're a breath of fresh air. You're like a genuine, real dude, you know? So that's just hard to find, especially in New Mexico. So I'm happy to introduce Mr. Michael Cain for District Attorney of Doña Ana County. Thank you so much for coming in, sir.
Thank you.
What is on your mind, man? The primary is ending. Today's the last day to vote, like Alice was saying. So I'm going to go vote here soon. I go to the Taj Mahal down here and cast my vote.
Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is code for
the government building on Motel. It's just this really big, extravagant government building that looks like the Taj Mahal.
It is a beautiful building for a city of only, 115,000 people.
Also known as the
County,
Cow
200.
Palace.
I've never heard of the Cow Palace.
The Cow
Another
Palace.
word for it.
Okay. Cow Palace as well. So I'm going to go vote. I'm going to go there to vote for Trump specifically because I heard that there's a lot of people on that list, not just Trump, which is weird to me.
Yeah, let me just mention real quick. So when I went down
Yeah.
there to vote, they still have Vivek's on there, Chris Christie, and Nikki Haley is on there. So I did ask them. I said, these guys all dropped out. Why are they still on the ballot? And what the answer that was given to me was because they applied to be on the ballot in New Mexico that they couldn't remove them. You might have some thoughts about
That's
that,
weird.
Mike. I don't know.
So I'm going to go vote for Trump, and I'm going to go vote for Mr. Cain because even though nobody primaried him, I just want to make a statement and say, look, I'm voting for him no matter what. I'm supporting the Republican cause right now. I'm a Republican. And I just want to see those numbers jump up for him early on. That's the goal there. So what's up, Mike? Primary ends today, like I was saying. What's on your mind? I mean, I know we talked in the past about who we think is going to win. Who do you think might win today on the Democrat side?
I really don't know. There are four so totally different candidates. My suspicion is that Fernando Macias will be the nominee.
Right. He ran a good campaign. I mean, I got in trouble for saying that the other day. I know a lot of people don't like Mr. Macias for various reasons. I was just being objective. Like, he ran a good campaign. He's got signs up to Galoo. We've seen him on TV. He goes to every event. He was the only other guy that's been to every event, with Mr. Cain. Mm-hmm. And he's decently well-spoken, So, yeah, I suspect he's going to win, too.
Mike, now, I'm still relatively new. I've only been back 2 years, actually, the end of May. And one of the things that I thought before I knew anything about the candidates on the Democrat side, signs, very important.
Yeah.
And he did. He had big, giant signs up all over the city, the county. But the fact that he is Macias, okay, a Spanish name.
That helps.
What do you think? How much influence is that? Because the other, top contester would have been Byers and Booth.
Booth, and then there's Ramona
Martinez, too.
Well, you bring up a good point because she does campaign work, and she's talked to Hispanics and Latinos recently that were all about Trump, and people, whether you're Democrat or Hispanic, whatever, people are not dumb. They realize what's going on, and they're voting Republican. I mean, we've got proof of it here in southern New Mexico. We've got a Republican mayor in Alamogordo, which is, they still got a good amount of Democrats there, but she would need a lot of Democrats to have won, and she did. She won. Same thing with Jennifer Jones in Luna County. There's way more Democrats registered than Republicans, and she still won. She had to pull from so Democrats vote for Republicans, guys. That's not over. We got to freaking vote real quick too, and we can speak to this too because I know you're probably a fan of Ted Nugent. I mean, are you?
Yeah.
He's extreme.
That
I know.
kind of dates me. Yeah, he's kind of extreme.
He's kind of extreme, but
we know who Ted Nugent is, and we're not embarrassed.
I'm old enough to I know.
He bring up a good point that only less than 50% of people who are licensed to hunt vote. And so that's like, man, nobody votes. Republicans don't vote. I think everybody knows that by now. I'm not telling a secret. And yeah, so vote, guys. Your vote does matter. I've seen people win Republican races in Democrat cities and Democrat states because they got people out to vote. So my moral of the story today is get out and vote. Vote for this guy. Come in November. That being said, Mike, what else is on your mind, man? Let us know what's up. Give us an update on the campaign.
Well, I think it's a good year to be a Republican. I'll just put it that way. With everything that's blowing in the wind nationally, locally, and everything else, I've had probably 3 or 4 people that are Democrat. I'm friends with a lot of Democrats and Republicans, but being in the line of work I'm in. But the other day I called a person who used to be a magistrate judge, whose family has a pretty significant history with New Mexico politics, and she kind of offhandedly said, well, how's your campaign doing? I said, well, actually, I think I'm doing pretty well. She goes, you're not going to win. I said, hold my beer. I mean, it's like, yeah. I've been listening to this my whole life. I was, told that I would never get through college. I was told that I'd never get through law school. I went in the military. worked my way up from a private to a captain. My whole life, people have been telling me I can't do stuff. I've been blowing their expectations out of the water. So I've heard so many times a Republican can't get elected in this county. You know what? I'm not ashamed of the fact that I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican since the first time I voted in 1980 for Ronald Reagan.
That's impressive.
There's a couple of those that I'm pretty ashamed of, honestly, in retrospect, but it was the best you could do at the time.
But you're admitting it. You're talking about it.
I'm not ashamed to admit when I make a mistake. The national thing between Trump and
Trump is pumped.
I was going to say Trump and Biden at the same. Between Trump and Biden is really fueling a lot of the trickle down to the local elections, and then we've got that whole thing over there combined with the crime problem and the homeless problem and the mentally ill people problem, property crimes problem here with the DA's office that's just not performing.
That's right.
And it's like a perfect storm.
Right.
So I've been here for 25 years. I've invested my life here. I've had people for years say, why don't you run for something? Why don't you run for this? Why don't you run for that? People that were Democrats, and they're like, we will support you. Mm-hmm. So
that doesn't surprise me.
I think I don't know of any reason why a Democrat wouldn't vote for me. I'm asking for Democrat and independent votes. There are, I think, more registered independents in Diana County than there are Republicans.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a situation where anyone that's elected is going to need a quorum of more than one particular brand of base. I think that goes to whether it's a Democrat or a Republican.
Now, you are a registered Republican to the max, like you said, but that being said, like, as I've gotten to know you, you do hit all spectrums. Like, you do have some Democrat tendencies. I call you out on him all the time. He really does, and progressives love this guy. He's obviously a Republican. He's a pro-2A guy. He's a constitutionalist guy. And then you've also got some independent mind stuff, too. You got some libertarian mindset, too, so you could appeal to the independent voters. So that being said, I'm going to throw something at you, make it a little uncomfortable. Say someone's on the far left, because I had talked to somebody that was criticizing, not necessarily you, but they want to vote blue all day. Mm-hmm. And their main thing is that, well, if any of those Republican candidates support Trump in any way, I'm not voting for them. If there's someone that you're talking to, someone in your constituents or whatever, and they said, hey, will you not support Trump? You know, what would you be your response for something like that?
I want to support Trump.
Right.
And the reason I'm going to do it is Trump has positioned himself dead square in the median of the highway on his policies.
No.
Joe Biden is running to the left as the left wing of the Democrat Party is pushing him away from their mainstream. My family were all Democrats. My grandfather wouldn't talk to me for 6 months after he found out I voted for Ronald Reagan. I thought it was funny. My dad thought it was really funny. But you've got a guy up there who's afraid to take on the radical part of his party, and that small minority of his party is driving that whole party away from the mainstream. When I say that, I'm going to give an example. About 2 weeks ago, some reporter asked Trump, would he support any reasonable restriction on abortion? And he came out with the textbook, middle of the road answer. He said, I support restrictions for the actual health, or actual life,
right,
of the mother, rape and incest.
Right.
And he said, on top of that, I think it belongs to the states. Mm-hmm. Now, combine that with the party who has tried to make New Mexico into an abortion refuge.
And they're succeeding, too.
They're making this an abortion destination, of all things. And believe literally in infanticide. The majority of American people are right where about 85% of American people believe there should be reasonable restrictions after 15 weeks.
That's right.
And I mean, he's put himself right dead square. He just completely defamed the left wing of the Democrat Party who wants to call him names.
So you're saying Trump's basically more in the middle than anyone else at this point. And I would agree with you there.
Trump is not a doctrinaire conservative if you want to get right down to brass tacks.
No, he's not. You're right.
He's a populist every day of the week.
He's a populist more than anything.
He's got a little bit of liberal, a little bit of conservative, and a little bit of libertarian mixed in.
And you have that too. I think you like I said before, you go across all the spectrums pretty well. Once people get to know you, that's the trouble with politics is, the media will depict what they want the people to know, right? Instead of letting them decide for yourself. That's why we're giving an opportunity to come on here and talk. Real quick, let's talk about that abortion clinic stuff. There was a prayer recently, right? Alice, I think you would probably know about this.
Yeah, we posted that on Facebook because it's a proposed abortion facility. And just for those of you that are watching us from another state, New Mexico, unfortunately, we have no limits here on abortion. None. So
we're no limit soldiers.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
kidding.
no limits on abortion. So we have a lot of people, they come
gnarly.
from Texas, from El Paso, they can even come all the way from Arizona. And, that's why I'm very, very active with the 40 Days for Life. And if you aren't and you want to be, please, 40 Days for Life.
Are we post-birth abortions like they did in that Eastern? Or we can do post-birth?
There are no limits as far as I know.
Listen, to my knowledge, I don't think a physician is required to render aid to a child that's born alive. I don't think so.
Wow.
I may be wrong on that, but
Well, yeah,
I don't think so.
we'll verify that. But I mean, that is crazy because that just completely against what you just said. That most people want some, even let's say 90% of people want some kind of regulation.
But
on
that's
these
the
abortions.
thing, Zeke, is we've let partisanship split this country wide open and force us into tribalism.
Right.
If you poll the majority of Americans, and I like to watch these young kids on YouTube, they go out into public and they ask people questions.
Right.
But just abortion, that one thing. I've seen people who are really conservative and they're totally pro-life. I cannot vote for him now. He would support it. But you know what? You're probably more likely to get judges who are going to put reasonable restrictions.
That's right.
If you elect him. I mean, I don't want people to think that I'm being compromising of my positions or anything like that, but there's a certain amount of, you're not talking church, you're talking politics.
Yeah, that's a great point. That the faults of tribalism right there. You're not being sensible. You're just being tribalistic. If you're being sensible, you look forward. It's like, hey, we got to meet someone in the middle. Because you're not going to go to, from like no limits to freaking, right to life kind of a policy overnight. You got to work your way towards it. So a sensible thing to do is meet someone in the middle and go from there, right?
Well, in the presidential campaign, you basically have, I guess you could say 3 choices, right? RFK, Biden, and Trump.
Right.
And it's just like when you're going to hire somebody, anybody who's ever had to be a boss, and you can hire the best person that's out there. So as you say, yeah, would I love Trump to be totally, super pro-life like me? Of course I would. I'd want every candidate to be everything that I wanted and be perfect.
But is that
You're
realistic?
not going to find it, though.
Is that realistic in the real world?
That's what I'm saying.
It's not.
It's not, and especially in today's world. In today's world, it's not. So what you have to do is look at every candidate and figure out who's the best person. Like you said, I love the point that you made. It's just like when Trump was in there. We have a Supreme Court because he got some conservative justices in there. So you have to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, they don't,
You really do.
That's why I'm glad you said that, because the guy I was talking about that kind of criticized you was like, well, he's real tribalistic. Well, if he supports Trump, I'd say I'm done. He doesn't want to talk to you. He doesn't want to get to know you. Doesn't want to understand your policies.
I probably have more in common with him than he's willing to admit.
And the funny thing is you do. And I know this guy well, and I know you well, and you guys do have a ton in common, and I know you guys will get along really good. But the programming of the tribalism has gotten to him so bad that he just, vomits that out right away. I won't vote for him.
I see it on both sides, and I'm going to tell you.
That's a good point, too. It is on both sides.
I want to make sort of a philosophical point here. I'm going to talk some political science and some philosophy.
Okay. We can do that. We can get philosophical.
Part of the problem in this country is that the federal government has way outgrown its constitutional bounds.
You can say that again.
true.
Now, I mean, it's honestly, the federal courthouse ought to be the smallest building in town. Really, if you get right down to it, there's only a few things that the federal government is supposed to be doing.
That's right.
Now, having said that, the far left wing of the Democrat Party wants a welfare state, and the far right wing of the Republican Party wants a police state. They both want big government, but they want their version of it.
That's a great point.
And people don't enunciate it that way. I had a guy tell me when he goes, I don't want anybody knowing what I do in my bedroom. I'm like, I know you pretty well. I really don't think anybody wants to know what you're doing in your bedroom. You go do whatever you want to go
TMI.
do. TMI. Seriously.
Unless you're in Texas and you're breaking some sodomy laws, but whatever.
But the church, and I've said this before, you've heard me say it at another one of the forums, for centuries, the church is, one of the main functions of the church was to be the social safety net. And we abdicated that to the government back in the 30s and 40s when the New Deal was coming along and people said, just let the government handle it. And then in the 60s, the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. We said, well, we've got to subsidize people who don't have a father in the house. Well, when you subsidize something, something's going to happen more often. So now we've got a whole generations, multiple generations of people that have been raised with no father in the house. And that's the single biggest predictor of who is going to live in poverty the rest of their life.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. They've been attacking the family for a long time, especially in that time period. That's when the dual income started to come about, and all that birth control started to come about shortly thereafter as well. And yeah, I agree. I think attacking the family is a very successful mechanism to destroying a society. We see it here today. And this is a very uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, but it's something we should be discussing.
Uncomfortable?
Yeah, because there's just really no accountability for that.
We've lost the ability somewhere in society we've lost the ability to have a civil conversation with each other. I grew up in the southern United States back during the 1960s, right on the tail end of organized segregation. In my 5th year in elementary school was when the schools desegregated. Down where I grew up in North Carolina, I went to John Dunbar Elementary for a couple of years. It was the former black school.
Wow.
We had a black principal.
Yeah, you grew up poor as hell too, right?
My mom worked in a textile mill, which that was the equivalent of field labor here. It was like the lowest job you could get.
That's right.
You worked in these old mills they looked like something out of the 18th century, out of the early industrial revolution. Just these rows and rows and rows.
I just think disease, because those places were like riddled with disease.
Well, the people there, my stepdad would come home when I was young. I lived with my mom, and my stepdad would come home from work, and he looked like he had been sprayed with the flocking like they put on Christmas trees.
Yeah.
It was cotton strands on, but people were inhaling that. Up in West Virginia, where the coal mines were, people inhaled cotton dust and died of black lung. But where I came from, they died. Most people were dead by the time they were 40 of brown lung disease from inhaling cotton dust. Nobody ever retired. And they didn't live long
Make
enough.
it that long.
So you have humble beginnings. I think that's important.
We were the only people on our street with an indoor toilet. It was literally the end of the hallway had been blocked off, and they put a toilet in there.
Damn.
Almost everybody had a hand crank well and an outhouse.
And you were telling me before that people would get bit by like brown recluse spiders and die or something like that, right? Because on the toilet, they would sit on the toilet and
When
get
I was
bit
5
up.
years old, when I started school, I went to live with my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister. And it was not unusual. I'll put it this way, probably 5, 6, 7 times a summer, we would go to a funeral, because we went to every funeral because he was the preacher. But someone had sat down on a toilet on an outhouse and had been bit by a black widow or a brown recluse. And people would keep a can of bug spray in there and spray up under it and hope to God they didn't get bit when they sat on it.
That's an amazing story, but getting back to your point.
Yeah, let's go back.
Sorry, I'm off track.
No, that's okay.
He made me do it.
That's okay. You guys, I can just leave. You can just do the whole thing by yourself. I know we could spend 2 hours with you, but I think there's statistics to back up what you're saying, and that the fathers have left and departed, especially among our minorities, and it's really been a very sad state of affairs.
But it was done with the best of intention, though. And we've got some people here on city council who I think have, in their heart, I think they believe that they are well intended, but they're
I want to believe they think that.
I think they want to believe that, but the fact of the matter is they're utterly ignorant of economics, they're utterly ignorant of history, they're utterly ignorant of human nature. I tell people all the time, I was a business management grad in undergrad. You can no more legislate the laws of economics than you can legislate the law of gravity. People think that they can go out and just go, boop, there's a law, we're going to pay people $20 an hour, and magically everything's going to get well. Well, that's not the way it works. An employer cannot afford to pay someone more than the value of what they're bringing into the business, and I'm telling you that as an employer. Mm-hmm. My staff are my staff are among the highest paid among any law firm in town, but it's because they bring a lot of value to my office.
So a lot of these topics, the DA really has nothing to do with.
I understand.
But it's okay. We're just kind of here, kind of just shooting the beep, just to kind of get to know you. And we're talking politics here too. We're talking philosophy here too. So we'll go back to the fatherless home subject. That's a tough subject, but you said that it's the biggest predictor of poverty. And I know poverty is a big issue for you because you felt like you grew up impoverished.
I did grow up impoverished.
And I think Alice has similar humble beginnings as well, right? I mean, remember you telling me that you guys had a small home that you and your family built onto through time, right?
Well, that's, my mom and dad got married in 1941. They built their own adobe house, and it started out just,
That's so badass.
a bathroom, a kitchen, and their bedroom.
Yeah.
The humble beginnings, yes. But, I'm not going to say, we were very comfortable. We always had food on the table. My dad always provided. My mom got to stay home. I think your circumstances were more dire than mine. But I always like to tell Zeke about, here on Amador, it was a dirt road. It was a whole dirt road.
I can't imagine
And
Amador a dirt freaking road.
I was a kid there, and my dad at night, he would just water the dirt road because he didn't like the cars passing by with all the dust and all that stuff. But, those things are great, though. I mean, they made us what we are, and I'm very proud of the way I grew up. And I think you are, too. I mean, look at all the stuff that you've been through and what you've become is amazing. And I want to ask you, we have so many things to talk about, too.
I didn't mean to get off subject.
No. Don't worry about it. It's easy, though, because you're an amazing personality. And please, no matter what you do, is your website up already?
It
We
is.
just got it up.
And what's the website?
Cain4da.com.
Is it the number 4?
No, spelt out the word for Cain4da.com.
So CAIN
FORDA.
for da.com. Go, because he's got just a fantastic story. If you can give him a few bucks wherever you are, it doesn't matter if you live in Arizona, my Arizona, where I came from, not originally New Mexico, and Arizona recently. Give him a few bucks because he can use it. But I would like to talk to you and ask your opinion about some national things that have gone on. Are we ready to transition yet? Okay, cool. So let's start out with let's finish off with Trump, because you talked a little bit about Trump. So I'm constantly amazed. Somebody, I think it was Gutfeld I was watching, and they said, look, if somebody asks you about how can you vote for a felon, because Trump is a convicted felon, how can you vote for a convicted felon? He says, all you got to tell him is, so? Do that. Everything, I didn't follow the trial maybe super intensely, but we still don't really know the charges. I'm conflicted too, because, not conflicted, but confused is a better word. This thing was turned down like 4 times from a federal level and on. Maybe you can, with your background, you can explain it a little better than I can, for sure.
The DA in Manhattan ran on a platform that he was going to get Trump. He was going to come up with some crime, and he was going to convict Trump of it. He's in one of the most far-left jurisdictions in the country, Manhattan, New York. The judges there are extremely left-wing. And I don't mean a little bit, I mean a lot. You know what I always tell people when they say, how could you vote for a felon? Basically, everybody that signed the Declaration of Independence had a death warrant out for them from the King of England.
Really?
Know that?
I didn't know that.
They did.
Death warrant for what?
They were all felons.
For
because
what?
they were in open rebellion against the crown.
That's pretty
Don't do
treasonous,
that.
actually.
That's pretty much
Don't do
right
that
there.
to the king. Yeah.
And they did it knowing, they put their names on there knowing that if they were
A lot of them did get killed.
They did.
A lot of them did die. A lot of people who signed Declaration of Independence did get
Now,
killed.
am I comparing Trump to one of the founding fathers? No. But what I'm saying is, when someone asks that kind of a question, that's my quick response to him is, well, I kind of believe in the Constitution. I know the names of several of the people that are on it. Most all of them ended up having, warrants out for their arrest for treason. So there were a whole bunch of things that went wrong in that Trump
That's a great
thing.
point.
So it started out that, first of all, a non-disclosure agreement is not illegal. They're done every day by attorneys all over the world for all kinds of reasons. Trump said, and I don't have any reason to doubt him, that the reason he did it was he was trying to spare his family embarrassment, and he was on, what was that TV show he was on?
The Apprentice?
The Apprentice, and they had a morality clause in there that he would be fired if they did something immoral in his employment contract. So those were 2 really good reasons to pay this prostitute money to keep her mouth shut, whether or not he did anything with her or not. At most, if he did it to influence, or if he mislabeled it, well, let me see if I can step back a further step. I don't do my own taxes. I have an accountant that does them. I'm sure Donald Trump doesn't sit down at the kitchen table once a year and do his taxes. He has accounting firms that do this for him. So some accountant somewhere wrote down that it was a legal expense, and apparently it was. It was a non-disclosure agreement. That's not illegal. They took that and said that he was trying to do it in furtherance of a crime. And the crime for them was purportedly that he was trying to unlawfully influence the election. But when it came time to hand out the jury instructions, this judge, when you're charged with a crime, it's supposed to be difficult for the government to take away your freedom. There's a reason why we have beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. The state, all the burden falls on the state to meet that burden. And in this case, the judge, let me borrow your piece of paper there. He took the jury instruction and he went, okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this right here is one thing. Here's A, B, and C. You don't have to meet A, B, or C, all 12 of you. As long as 4 of you agree on this and 4 of you agree on this and 4 of you agree on this, the subsections, it's enough.
And how could that be legal, Mike?
It isn't legal, but he's a left-wing ideologue. His daughter is making millions of dollars off of this. She's a left-wing activist, whatever. Bragg is going to have his ticket punched with the left wing of the party now. And we're going to have to trust the appellate process to put the brakes on this. We normally trust the jury, but when you're picking a jury, I've only been to Manhattan a couple of times in my life, but if you're picking a jury out of that jury pool, it was expected that he would get a conviction out of it. So the whole thing, Alan Dershowitz is one of my favorite authors and I watch his webcast, and Dershowitz is about as Democrat as you can get, and he actually wrote a book called Get Trump. He talks about it on his webcast every day. He's been following that trial closely. There was one defense witness that was called in who was a national expert on campaign finance law, and the judge made just an incredibly erroneous decision, and this guy was a lawyer, and he rolled his eyes at the judge, which I think everybody that knew anything about law did, and the judge very politely sent the jury out and then sent all the members of the press out. He didn't send Dershowitz out because he didn't identify him as a member of the press, and then he went ballistic on this guy, which is completely improper for a judge to do. He said, if you do anything like that, I'll hold you in contempt and I won't let you testify. Well, number one, this guy isn't the one on trial. It's Mr. Trump sitting over here. This is a witness. You don't get to treat a witness like that, Mr. Judge. Judges have constraints, although most of them like to live like they don't. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, in most places, the Supreme Court will not regulate
even
them.
for that inappropriate behavior, couldn't you say, dude, you should be off the case? Could they have thrown him off the case?
Most places, including here, you have a very narrow window to get a peremptory excusal for a judge. Usually it's 10 days of the time that like in a criminal case, it's 10 days from arraignment. So that's you, and not every state has a peremptory excusal. So peremptory excusal is, I just don't want this judge on this case, so I can file it and get him off the case. An excusal for cause is completely up to the judge. So, and I want to tell you right now from prior experience, I've never seen a judge, I take it back, one time I've seen a judge go, you know what, you're right, there is an appearance of impropriety, I'm getting off the case. Was a really, really, really good judge that's retired now, who happened to actually be a very left-wing Democrat who I got along fabulously with.
But he sounded like he had his concepts and he was fair.
He did. He said,
judge.
he was like this. He said, you know what? I don't take it personal. He said, if somebody thinks I'm not going to be fair, I got plenty of other things to do. Let them go. And that's the way a judge should be, instead of taking it personally, but some do.
So do you have any predictions about what's going to happen?
I think this is going to boomerang badly on the Democrat Party. I really do. I mean, somebody made a joke one day, if they could just indict Trump a couple of more times, they might as well just go and elect him. I mean, every time they do it, it backfires on them. For some reason, they keep thinking that if they just keep doing it enough times. Fannie Willis is incompetent down in Georgia. I can't believe that woman got through law school, literally. Some of the stunts that she's pulled. I suspect that after the fact, the bars in those states are going to come in and try to clean up some of the mess, but it's going to be too late. The damage will have been. They will have done their damage. Their damage was to get him the label of convicted felon. Because if you, George Stephanopoulos, who is a ridiculous airhead.
Remember Steffi?
Snuffleupagus. He was Bill Clinton's press secretary, and his entire resume was, my daddy was a Democrat and I'm a press secretary. Now he works for MSNBC. And he just chunked into one of the Trump attorneys yesterday. I watched the whole interview, and he goes, but he's a convicted felon. And the guy goes, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. I mean, what passes for the mainstream media is just ridiculous. If you're trusting that, and I'm not saying go to Fox News. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you should be intelligent enough. I usually tell people what I do is I try to find the actual source. If somebody says, President Trump said X, Y, and Z, I'll go try to find the recording
Right.
or the actual writing of where he said. I don't want to hear what somebody said about what he said. I want to hear what he said. And I'll give you a perfect example. He said, my first day in office is going to be vengeance. And my vengeance is going to be that I'm elected. Well, Maxine Waters gets up the next day and says, he's threatening civil war. We don't know whether we're safe or not. It's like, give me a break. You couldn't even have listened to what he said and say that.
They're very good
It's
at
slander.
that.
It's slander.
Unfortunately, it's just so silly that people can look at this and say, oh, he's a convicted felon. It's like, well, did you not see the way Biden behaves around kids all these years? You know, did you not see the open border with all the fentanyl and all of the illegals and all the crime and the murder and the rape? You know, I mean, did you not see the economy absolutely tanking? I mean, we're about to go through the biggest economic crash in human history.
Oh, don't forget the classified documents that were stored in his garage next to his Corvette while his
Right.
drug-addled son was waddling in and out of the
Drug-addled.
house.
And he was only vice president at that point.
And his
Right.
own DOJ said we should have indicted him, but he's not with the program enough
So
to
the
The
indict
feeble
him.
old man.
Look
yeah.
at all that. He can't even talk either. Look at all that. But it's like, no, Trump is a convicted felon now, even though he went his whole business career, not one felony. Only when he runs for president, he gets like 45 felonies. He has more felonies than Al Capone now.
But see, the point I want to make is this.
I think it's just silly.
I am going to vote for Donald Trump. I'll tell anybody that asks me, I want to vote for Donald Trump. That being said,
That shows you got balls.
I don't think
Say that.
that we ought to be dividing ourselves along those lines. Some people are going
I
to
don't
still.
think so either.
We've got bigger problems. We got problems right here on Main
Right.
Street that we need to be dealing with.
We're more open-minded and in the gray area and willing to come to the table. I think all of us are than most. And we're here sitting talking right now in front of the public, like we're not afraid. It's the other side that I think is more tribalistic in their demeanor.
They want to divide us because that's where they have power and they keep us distracted
There's a
and
very narrow
confused.
part of that part of the left wing that wants to divide us, and that's their power.
Well, the radical
radical
left.
left.
And there's,
Yes.
there's radical on the right too that do the same way.
They're exactly the same way.
They're just as divisive.
And I don't support them any more than I do the radical left.
I agree.
So
No, just the point is I've seen you. I know Alice too. She's actually super sensible. She really likes to debate people. She'll talk to someone on the complete other side of the aisle and hang out with them for a while, peacefully talking to them about what the heck's going on. I mean, you're volunteering for Mr. Tosted's campaign right now, right?
Yeah, Dave Tosted.
And that's what you got to do is you go door to door and you talk to people who may or may not have wanted to vote for this particular candidate, and you got to hash it out with them sensibly. And
Well, it's a lot of information to gain by somebody. Why do you think that way? How do you think? They may not have information that they know about.
They usually don't, right? They usually
Typically,
don't.
true.
And so, no, I'm just complimenting you
Thank you.
and your minds, both of y'all, and your mindsets and your willingness, and highlighting your willingness to go to the other side and talk and hanging out and solve issues. I just talked to Peter Goodman over email recently about the school board. I think they're focusing a lot on the wrong things, you know, and I want to get to the table with whoever so we can help the freaking kids out. I'm not trying to put Republican hats and Trump MAGA hats on kids and all this crazy, like, it's not even about that at all.
You
Like,
aren't really. You didn't buy
No.
the maggot hats.
it's not about that. Trump's just a figurehead, you know. I mean, there's a big problems with the Republican Party. There's big problems with the Democrat Party,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
as a local community, at a local level, we can solve a lot of problems. We can get past all that tribalism.
I wanted also to ask Mike about, what started this week was Hunter Biden. Okay, so they're finally getting to him,
I didn't hear about any of this.
and all that I really
I'm not
know.
as well informed on this,
Sure.
but I do know what's going on with it. So.
Sure, they selected the jury, I think, already, and I'm thinking, one part of me thinks, well, maybe this is actually good if they go after Hunter Biden and they do convict him for some reason. His dad can still just
He'll
pardon
pardon
him.
him. He'll pardon
He
him.
can pardon him, and of course
Yeah.
he would,
I don't
and he
like
probably
following Hunter.
any dad would. But the problem is, the dude, you talk about our justice system, and it just seems like everything takes so long and it's so politically convenient. It makes me uncomfortable as an American.
Well, for Hunter, real quick, I'll say this. I have really good ideas of what was really on his laptop. That guy's a sick puppy.
He's very sick.
He's a sick puppy. And so if they couldn't pin him on that, I just don't think they're going to pin him on anything.
Well, the FBI held the evidence for about 2.5 years.
They certainly did.
They absolutely just hid it.
But if you guys heard, I'm sure you guys heard what was on it, right? I mean,
Yeah, we know what was on it.
it's gnarly. It's gnarly. And so that's what's going on at the higher echelons of the political landscape. And it's normalized at that level. I mean, Hunter Biden has normalized smoking crack at the White House, buying prostitutes, selling crack. He's normalized it Oh, and by the way, he owns an art company. He's never been an artist, but he sells $500,000 pieces of art regularly now.
It's a great
and
vocation.
so he's normalized money laundering too.
And we're so used to now seeing him, doing crack in his underwear.
It's kind of like
an
the
image
homeless
I'd like to
people
get rid of.
at
Wouldn't you, Haley?
Well, the fact pattern of that whole thing is just, if you were writing some kind of a crazy police show, I don't think you could make up a set of facts like this. I mean, the guy's doing drugs. He goes and buys a gun, and on the form it says, "Do you use drugs?" And he puts no when he's got video of himself doing
drugs.
it. And by the way, he's shacking up with his dead brother's wife.
That's crazy. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so he throws the gun in a dumpster in one of his drug-addled
States.
And I guess she goes and digs it out, and someone else finds it. I mean, it's just you're not going to hear any of this on any of the mainstream news.
It's a political novella. Yeah.
It's like a comic book. I mean, it would be laughed with if it weren't so stupid and just crazy.
So what are your thoughts about what do you think will actually happen?
I think they'll convict him and his dad will pardon him.
Mm-hmm.
He will.
And do you think, so at least when I try to look at something of the positive side, there'll be a benefit to it's out there again, and if we as Republicans, or even just think of yourself as a political informant, get information out, because this is outrageous, all of this stuff, like you say, the normalization that's happened, and it's just politically frightening to me.
Normalization is real too, because I think of Hunter Biden now. He's kind of nostalgic to me now. It's like when I go to Albuquerque on Central, and I don't see like a drug crazed meth head. I feel kind of weird. Like I'm kind of used to seeing that guy there on Central screaming at the top of his lungs in the middle of the night.
Breaking Bad Biden or something.
Right. I mean, so like Biden, it's like, oh, there's Hunter. He's doing his thing with the crack and the hookers and all that. That's cool. It's normalized. It's normalized to me.
But one of the things I wanted to kind of make sure that I'm understood on, Z, I don't like that stuff any more than you do.
Nah.
But I don't.
I don't think many people do, bro.
But the thing of it is everybody in this county has a very real problem right here with homeless people walking around kicking in door fronts,
That's right.
defecating on sidewalks, leaving needles on sidewalks. We've got a city council that won't do their damn, well, at least 3 of them don't have enough sense to do their job. And we're going to have to get past what's Hunter Biden doing, and I don't know that what's gone on with Trump is going to make any difference in the long run, but we need to get together as people that are from Doñana County and go, we need to fix this problem. That's what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
Because most of our stuff, most everything that we deal with on a daily basis comes from local government. It's why the founders, especially Madison, believed in federalism. In other words, the best government is the one closest to the people. Your county and city government and state government should be the ones that are most accountable to you.
Let me throw one quick for instance out there real quick. So Officer Hernandez, if you guys don't know, is one of the most brutal murders you'll ever see.
It's horrific.
I saw bits and pieces of it. But that gentleman who killed him, that guy who killed him, he was in and out of jail for a long. He had a really horrible past. And I'm confused. Is that state policy that let that guy out of jail, or would the district attorney have some kind of power as to whether or not someone like that would stay in jail?
I haven't gone by. I know the guy had 60. I think it was 63 arrests. I think I'm right on that. Maybe
violent.
And a lot of them violent. He was obviously mentally ill. This has been what I've seen. I think the DA's office is going and asking for the pretrial detention where there is a person who normally would be considered dangerous. The judges are catching the blame for this, although the judges are following the law. And I explained this in several of the forums. 25 years ago, the pendulum was way over here where, everyday people get DWIs. I'm going to use that as an example.
Yeah.
People that own businesses and worked at jobs forever and they own
Back then it
houses.
was common, yeah.
And they'd make them pay a $5,000 bond, which meant they paid $500 to a bondsman who didn't have to do anything in the world. Bond is to make sure you show up for court, or you don't go out and get
Back
more
then they
court.
just follow you home. If they pulled you over when you were drunk, I'll just follow you home.
But my point is, it went from the bondsman making all this money to 3 or 4 years ago, we went up when we had bail reform.
Yeah.
Now, there's a very high standard for a judge to keep someone in jail pre-trial. Yeah,
oh,
it's pretty high.
So that's what happened.
Yeah, they moved the goalposts.
So they got rid of the bondsman, basically.
Basically, yeah.
And the bondsman was there to keep people in jail, or to make sure they showed up to trial, to court.
The bondsman would always. I've been over there in the morning, and the judge will call somebody, and like Dario Gomez, when he was alive, he would go, "Excuse me, Judge, I'll go out in the hall." He'd make a phone call. He'd get them over there. So a lot of times these people were homeless or whatever. He didn't know where the people move all the time, but he would keep up with them, sort of babysit them to some extent. But a lot of those people didn't need that. Most people who go out and get their first misdemeanor DWI are terrified because they get freaked out if they get a traffic ticket. They go get a DWI and they're really freaked out.
Okay.
They're not going to do anything to upset the
So they got rid of the bondsman.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so they're easy to so you can't, it's really hard to keep them in jail, and you think that's pretty much what's going on.
They file a pretrial detention motion, and the judge has a hearing, and like I said, the burden of proof is like way up here for the judge to hold the people in jail by the law. The judges are following the law.
Because that's a big problem. You go ahead, Alice?
Well, I was going to say, Mike, so they got rid of the bail. That's a city council
Most
function
of
that did that?
No,
Or
the state
the
did
state
that.
did
The Supreme Court and
That's the whole state.
It was a state, what do you call it, a referendum.
So the only way to bring it back, it has to be
It's going to have
through
to
the
be dealt with
state.
statewide.
Right.
It's got to be done.
And that's where, because so many people, and it's pretty much, take them in, let them out, take them in, let them out.
Well, I mean,
How do you get things done?
Vic Villalobos had fetching designs over there on Amador, almost out at Motel Boulevard, and had that video a month or so ago. This guy kicking his door in, and the guy had been arrested 46 minutes before and was already out and just walked right up 18th Street.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's what we got to try and stop.
The way it's got to be stopped is you've got to have the ability, you got to have the law redrafted so that it gives the DA some teeth to hold these people. That's what's got to
It's
happen.
these repeat offenders that I think are the most dangerous, that have been proven to do these most heinous crimes.
It's just a matter of time, and I've been saying this, and I'm not advocating it. Take this as a warning. I think it is a matter of time before vigilantism is going to take hold here, and people are going to start shooting homeless people.
It may.
I think it is a matter of time, and
yeah.
I'm not saying that to advocate that.
I mean, that's what this country was founded on, man. You had your Constitution in one pocketbook, and you had your gun on the other side.
If the government will not
That's
protect you, people have a right to protect
That's
themselves. And I'm not
exactly-
saying I'm advocating that.
No, yeah, me neither.
First thing you're going to see is tomorrow morning in the Sun News, Michael Cain's advocating shooting homeless people. That is
He's
not
not.
what I am saying. I am saying there is a warning to be had here, and that is that the government is failing to protect people, and don't be surprised when they do it themselves. That's a warning. I want to be
It's-
absolutely crystal clear on that, and anybody that calls me any different, I'm going to call them a liar.
And we have him recorded, so you can't dispute this. Absolutely.
You'll hear me say the
So,
same thing 10 years from now.
Let's say you get elected. Okay, you get elected, and you'll start, that would be January of next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get inaugurated. Can your DA office do anything to help implement, be instrumental in maybe getting those things changed?
Raising hell at Santa Fe to get it done. We got to put the all-out heat on the state legislature to do it. It's what it's got to be. And it's got to be someone that's a strong leader that can get people to call and write, go up there and insist that those rules be changed.
Because it makes your office, the office that hopefully you will be holding soon, very difficult. And it's just, there's just really I don't see anything good about this change in law.
We will have someone that their only job is to do pretrial detention motions. But when you get in front of the judge and the judge is following the law, those people are going to turn right around and get right back out.
You can still do
I'm just
it.
telling you, until we change the law. That's a systemic thing that's got to be changed.
Okay, we're down to our last few minutes. So, Zeke, what have we not covered? We want to give Mike some extra time here at the end. And guys, we will have Mike back. He's just a wealth of information. Just awesome, and especially at this time in the period of history of our nation.
No, yeah, we can get 2 hours with Mike here. He's got so much wealth of knowledge with the law and the Constitution, and I think the district attorney's race is extremely important because I know this stuff. I've seen, real quick, the district attorney, like you said, there's vigilantism going on. Some dude tries to break into someone's house or break into someone's car. He ends up having to kill him and shoot him, to protect himself, protect his property, his family. the judge will end up prosecuting that guy who
Well,
just.
the DA will end up, the police and the DA will do it.
That's what I'm saying. But a lot of those guys have ended up in jail for long periods of
They will
time.
do it. Yes, they could.
And that just for simply using their Second Amendment rights, So how do you feel about that? Will you be someone that would be defending people who defend their property and their family, or are you if they use their gun, they're going to jail no matter what? I mean, that's kind of how it is.
Now I am a member of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. I'm one of their staff attorneys, and the U.S. There's three different of the gun group, national 2A gun groups that I'm a staff attorney for, and we do self-defense use of force cases for them when they're local.
Okay.
And so I am all in favor of appropriate use of force. Now, people have to be really, really, really careful. Police get this wrong sometimes.
They do.
I watch John Correa with active self-protection. He was actually my expert witness out here last month with that capital murder case that we tried. The guy's one of the national experts on use of force and use of deadly force and that kind of thing. And he'll show, once a week they'll do police cams where it's body cams, and ever so often there's a cop that just in the heat of a moment makes a bad decision and shoots somebody and shouldn't have let that kid in Florida that was in the Air Force. They kicked his door down. The kid freaked out. He didn't know who it was, and they shot him dead. That cop's in trouble now. I mean,
as he should be. If he's not
as he should be.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that to be anti-police. I mean, I understand.
He didn't follow the law.
I understand that police are put in a very bad situation. It's why the law usually will give them the benefit of the doubt, because they are frequently coming into contact with violent members of society, the most violent members. And if there's a benefit of the doubt, you kind of have to go, yeah, we'll analyze it, but if it's close, you'll probably err on the side of letting the cop.
So you're open-minded. I imagine there's other district attorneys out there that are like, oh no, if there's a gun out, it's over. They're going to jail.
Well, the DAs here now do that.
That's what they do, right?
I'm actually shocked he didn't charge the guy that killed Officer Hernandez, honestly.
He didn't charge him?
They did not charge him.
What do you mean?
The guy who killed Officer Hernandez, the bystander shot.
Yeah.
The assailant.
They should have. I thought that they were going to go after that guy.
I was surprised they didn't, honestly.
It was just too much of a heartfelt story. I think it would have killed them politically. But go ahead.
I think you're right as far as the political.
Yeah,
it would have been.
It was too edgy on the political side. I mean, because it was such a brutal murder. It was such a terrible situation. And that guy just did his freaking job. What was the story of that? That guy was, we're running out of time, but that was a really interesting guy. The guy went over and almost saved his life, took out a bad guy.
I know the guy who was there.
You do know the guy that was there, right?
I'm friends with him, yeah. He's a really good guy. I won't call his name. He doesn't like the attention. But he was trained as a medic. He had training. He feels like he did the right thing to use the use of force like he did. And he feels like he was there with that officer when that officer died, rendering first aid, doing what he could do.
Damn, that's intense.
It's really intense, but he's the kind of personality that he just kind of rolled with it. I mean, he's really an admirable guy.
Yeah, you said he was pretty stoic and numb about it, right? Kind of just like
he's not numb.
Not numb, but he's just stoic. Like
he's just
like
it happened, and I did the right thing, and I couldn't change.
Can you imagine that? Damn, that's crazy.
If he wasn't there. My God, what else would have happened?
That guy deserves a freaking medal, man.
What else would have happened?
I agree.
Yeah.
Although he's not the kind of guy that would probably want a medal for it.
No, but it's just the heroism is never promoted in society. You know what I mean? It's never talked about. That's true heroism right there. Go ahead, Alice.
Ironically, as I was driving over here today, so the current county attorney, I've seen his signs up. And the two times where I've seen them, one is on Spruce, right there by Trevis. Mm-hmm. And he's got they're really nice signs. They're pretty good size.
The Macias ones?
No, Byers.
Byers.
Is our current guy. Right?
Oh, yeah, the incumbent, yes.
And there's a shopping cart. So it was there. It was there this weekend, okay, an empty shopping cart. It was there this weekend. I was going to Mass, I think. And then the next time it's still there today, okay? It's kind of but it's a little bit symbolic. The other one is over here where the Citizens Bank is, on Lohman, and that it used to be a Church's Fried Chicken, I think. So the big sign is still there, and it keeps getting hit with graffiti, right? It keeps getting hit. Well, you just got a big fresh one tagged, yeah, right? And that's there. There's a nice big buyer sign there too. Okay, it's just symbolic to me. Like a lot of people don't understand. I think graffiti. Once you let your town go to hell and start going like that, it's not good. It's not good. It doesn't speak well.
The graffiti.
I find that so symbolic.
The graffiti's speaking to a bigger problem. Most of the time, it's gangs that are marking their territory with it. just the graffiti is unsightly enough, but you also need to know there's probably some of these little heathens are out here 18, 19 years old carrying Glocks with the 50 round mags in them. You know, they think they're gangsters and they're going to shoot people like
They're
this.
not your West Side Story gang.
No,
right?
they're just little ignorant heathens is what they are, but they're dangerous. So that's the problem. Is not it's unsightly enough to have that out there, but it's indicative that there is gang activity going on, and that's what's even more troubling. That's the way I see it.
Absolutely. In Arizona, my good friend David Gonzalez, he's not the state marshal anymore there, but I remember we were going somewhere, I was giving him a ride, and he was telling us they would use the graffiti and stuff because it would tell them, it would give them locations of that, and that's how they could track people down.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's cool.
Actually, there was a judge in North Carolina when I was growing up that had started a little bit, and he would make these kids, he'd give them a bucket of soapy water and a scrub brush. He'd make them go out on the hottest day of the year and stand up there and scrub it off. Which was actually pretty good. You know, a little bit of public shame can go a long ways towards correcting.
We got to bring
that.
public shame back.
Yeah.
We should bring that
You
back.
just like being shamed, I think.
Well, it's gotta be something. No one, there's just immorality running around willy nilly out here these
It's
days.
responsibility and accountability for your actions, right? I want to give you a couple of minutes to address our audience. It's been great to have you on here. Thank you for your time. And you know, he will be, he's going to win the primary. You're running unopposed for the Republican side here. But just give our audience, tell them what you'd like to know and your website and all that good stuff too.
I just want folks to know that I'm a business owner. I've owned a business. I've been an attorney for 25 years. I've owned a business for 17. I have employees. My office is right over here on just a couple of blocks away. I'm known as one of the more competent attorneys, trial attorneys in town. I have one of the highest trial resumes of anyone in town. I've done somewhere between 150 and 200 full jury trials, and people go, why don't you know the exact numbers? Because like it's been a long time and I don't keep track. When I left the DA's office, another attorney that was hired about the same time as I sat down and we talked and we said, how many trials have we done in the last 4.5 years? And we figured somewhere about 125 each then. And I'm just figuring in the 15 years since then, or almost 20 years since then, what else would have happened? 20 years since
200, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of naturally gone that direction. But again, I want people to understand, I'm here not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, not as an independent. I mean, if you had to place me somewhere on the political spectrum, I'm probably a small L libertarian / small C conservative. I'm not radical by any definition of the word. I believe that I'm probably about as mainstream in my values as anyone I know. I don't see myself as radical. My brother used to tell me I was, but then he was like really radical.
Funny coming from a radical.
But the funny part of it was we still managed to get along as brothers. So my family were all Democrats growing up. All of them were. My wife's family were all Democrats. And we're going to at some point have to go, who is the best person to get a hold of this problem here? And I think I'm that person. I started to run 4 years ago. This is the third or fourth election cycle that would have been no challenger to the Democrat primary. The Democrats chose the DA the last 3 or 4 times in their primary. And I just said, no, damn it, this time I'm not going to do it. I may not get elected, but I'm going to tell you what, whoever gets that job will have earned it because I'm going to put them through the ringer. They're going to earn the reason why they need to have that job. They're not going to get it because they've had every job title in the world working for government with no responsibility. They're going to be called out on some of their bad decision making. I intend to do that. I will be asking people for support. I do need financial support. It's going to take it. The other thing is I want to tell people times have changed. Used to be, when I was a kid, we went downtown to the courthouse on election day. You probably remember this house. It was a big deal. Everybody stood in line. You went in, you pulled the little curtain, you voted. Whether you like it or not, early voting is the way things happen now. And unless Republicans and conservative Democrats can get their minds around that and go out and use that as a tool and an advantage, we are going to continue to see a very small very vocal, very radical portion of the left control the narrative in this country. We've seen it on city council, we've seen it on county commission, we see it at the state legislature. These are not the majority of people in this state.
Yeah, I think it's pretty black-pilled. You know, I'm a happy pessimist. I think things are going to get really bad on the national level. I think we're going to go through something dire financially and politically. But the best thing to do for us is to take care of our local community and to govern ourselves as best as we can, because that's what the Constitution really dictates, is that we take care of our own communities. And the best way to do that is to elect people that you know, people that you trust, that can do the right thing when the proverbial SHIT hits the fan here very soon. Very soon. And I think Mike's the guy. Thank you so much for coming in, Mike.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Alice.
Really appreciate you
Sure.
being here. So until the next time, for another edition, another episode of the Chips and Salsa Show, New Mexico, I'm Alice Lara, and you are?
Zeke the Freak Rodriguez.
Absolutely. And should we do a quick prayer to lead us out? Just like
Yeah,
it doesn't
sure.
feel right unless you do that.
Yeah, sure. Lord, thank you so much for bringing us here together as always, and we always want to thank you for our blessings. We pray that we do everything we need to do to save our community, Lord, and that Mr. Cain has all the tools that he needs to follow your word, Lord, so we can spread your message throughout our community and save this community, save this state, save this country as best as we can. And we just stay very grateful for everything that you have given us thus far. Thank you so much, Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Amen. So we'll be with you again next week for the Chips and Salsa Show, New Mexico. Michael Cain for
Thank you.
Caledonia County Attorney. Walk on.